I just saw it and was like it, knit it, sounds good. I want my stockinette in the round now. What kind of funky things are we gonna be doing here? I could do like a little bit less of this.
I'm Nora, and this is also known as Nora.
Hello, you guys. I am Nora, and you're watching, also known as Nora Knits. We are officially in the holiday season. I think I went a little overboard today. I was going for cozy, Christmas, cute, ugly Christmas sweater, lipstick, hair, and I feel like I kind of just look like I'm off duty at my toddler dance routine recital. So I'm not. I am wearing my Christmas sweater from last year. I crocheted this sweater last year, completely just kind of, oh, you can't even see it. I will have to give you a little bit of a tour of my sweater, but it is a totally crocheted sweater, and it's granny stitch and granny squares, just totally made up by myself, with the exception of some of the granny square designs are by Happy Berry Crochet, and then some of them are my own adaptions of those same designs, and then some of them were just me freestyling and having some fun. So I think maybe I should take a little video and put it up over on Instagram so that you could get like the full tour of my sweater. But for now, this is what you get. This whole sweater is made using Caron 1 pound, their acrylic yarn. And yeah, it's just like in a vintage sort of off-white and this like vintage more burgundy color, and then the slightly bit sagier green. And then all of the little like motifs, those are done in various scraps of acrylic or other Caron, or I don't know. They're just like a whole mess of other acrylic yarns. And yeah, I dug it out last night, so if it looks a little rough, it's because it was just sitting in a box for a year. But this is my ugly crochet Christmas sweater that I made last year, and I thought I'd bust it out for the first video in December. Although it is just comical that all you see is the top half. So can you even see my little bear? No. All right. Anyway, if you are new here, like I said, I'm Nora. I'm coming to you from a small farm in Connecticut, and I've been knitting for almost a year now. And basically, I just really enjoy talking about knitting and all of these little fiber things that are involved. I also am someone whose philosophy is that the imperfections are what make something so perfectly handmade. So if that resonates with you, then I would definitely suggest sticking around. We do this style of podcast every Saturday at 9:30 a.m. over here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in. I think a good place to start is with the width that has been on my needles the longest, and that is my Corsavan cardigan by Tanya Hodney. Now, you may remember a few weeks back, I said that I was going to try and do a basket weave a day on this cardigan, as it has been on the needles for quite a bit now. Today is officially day 118 of this being a whip. And basically, yeah, it's a basket weave cardigan. It's a V-neck. I'm planning to modify the button band from the ribbed button band that's written in the pattern into a double knit button band. And I have basically just been hung up on this one for a little bit. It's my second time knitting this pattern, and so I don't feel particularly like motivated to see what it's going to look like in the end, as I already know what it's going to turn out to be. And therefore, I think my momentum on this has just been slowed down a little bit. So yes, a few weeks back, I decided that I would try and do a basket weave a day. And that was working out really well until last week, when I was rushing to the finish line to get my Thanksgiving vest done in time. However, since getting my Thanksgiving vest done, I have found this project to be just something that I didn't have anything plain stockinette on the needles, and I didn't have anything really familiar. And since I have knit this before, this became the sort of all reliable, just to have around when I just wanted to have my hands doing something but didn't really want to be paying attention. That is until I decided that I would also modify the shape of the sleeves on this cardigan. So in the original pattern, they are written as a sort of balloon sleeve that rapidly decreases at the cuff, and then the cuff is knit. And I just wanted for this sweater to be a little bit more of a streamline classic basic for me. And so I did decide that I would want more of a tapered sleeve. So after a little bit of math, I made some choices about how I was going to decrease. Then I started to do those decreases and realized that I was looking at the wrong numbers. I was trying to find the number of stitches that the pattern said you would decrease by, all at the cuff. And I wanted to do that evenly spaced from starting around the elbow all the way to the cuff. So I had to kind of divide the amount of decreases by the amount of rows that I was then going to be knitting. And I was doing all this while I was watching the Thanksgiving Day parade. And I was like throwing out random numbers at my boyfriend. I was like, what's this divided by this? What's this divided by this? And he was all accurate. But I didn't realize that instead of reading the number of decreases I should have, I was actually reading the number of stitches that should be left over after the decreases. So then I had to rip back and remath, but I think we're on track now. Now, I will say, hindsight 2020, I probably should have just started the decreases with right off the bat in the sleeve, like right at the underarm, but I just didn't think to do that. And so I did start them at the elbow, and therefore when the sleeve is laying flat, it does have this kind of like wonky shape to it. But I'm pretty sure that once it's on my body, that's not going to be as obvious. Now, I had been kind of fielding suggestions for how I should do my decreases on the sleeve, being that this is a textured pattern. And I didn't really want to, I mean, I knew I was obviously going to disrupt the basket weave pattern. I just didn't want it to look so out of place. And honestly, essentially what I've wound up doing is every 3 rows, I am doing at the beginning of round, I'm doing knit 2 together. And then at the end of round, I'm doing slip, slip, knit. So that I have my decreases leaning accordingly. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, by the way, because I could not figure out for the life of me which side which was supposed to go on. But I think it looks okay so far, so I'm not too bothered. And then basically I was just, when I got into the next row, kind of trying to just continue with the pattern as usual. I will say I probably should have done purl 2 together and such when pearls were the things at play in that part of the pattern, but I was just like too worried about everything else that I just continue with knits. So that's maybe the one thing I would change at this point, but so far so good. I did add a stitch marker just at the row that I started to do the decreases at. That way I knew where I was starting. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I feel like I've made good progress on this, considering where it's been for the past few weeks. So basically my left sleeve is just knit down to the point where it's ready to start decreasing once I finish the right sleeve. That is currently on the needles, just decreasing. And I will say I pretty much did most of this progress in a day and then haven't touched it for a few days. And I guess that's kind of the way that it's going to go. But I am still telling myself a basket weave a day, because that's kind of just allowing me to gauge that more or less I'd like to get 7 basket weaves done a week. I don't know if I've been doing that at all, but that's what I'm telling myself, and we're making progress, so I can't even be mad about it. One of the other modifications I do plan to make is I would like the cuff to start a little bit sooner than it does in the pattern. I think that I'd like the cuff to match the sort of width that this is the hem of the cardigan. I'd like the cuff and the hem to have a very similar width. And I am hoping that with the decreases that I'm doing, I won't have a very snug cuff, but rather just and not a super wide one either, just kind of open, if that makes sense. I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but I am knitting this cardigan out of the Lion brand Fisherman's Wool, and this is in the colorway Oatmeal. I had purchased this yarn in a 6-pack off of Amazon that I no longer see available anywhere, so I'm so sorry. However, when I did purchase it, it said that the item was defective. And upon receiving it, I really couldn't figure out what was wrong with the item, other than the fact that a couple of the actual skeins of yarn had a sort of funky scent to them. But then I found myself in a Joann's the other day, and I was looking at the Lion brand Fisherman's Wool, and I noticed that the oatmeal that they had in the store was a way warmer, more beigey color than mine is. So I'm kind of wondering if that's actually where things went awry, and maybe that's why it was listed as defective. And normally that wouldn't be an issue. However, when I purchased the 6-pack, it was with the intention of if I needed more to sort of supplement whatever I had left over, it would be easy enough to purchase a few extra balls of this yarn at Joann's. And it appears that that might not be as simple as I thought. That being said, I did just crack into the 3rd ball of the 6 that I have, and I can't imagine I'm going to need a 4th ball to complete this cardigan. So the 3 that I have left would be sufficient for another garment. The only issue is that I actually thought that I was going to be putting those 3 balls possibly towards a bigger garment and then supplementing with new yarn. So once this cardigan is once this cardigan is done, I am going to wear this to Joann's and see if the colors match up, or maybe it was just the lighting in the store. I couldn't really tell, but that was something that shocked me a little bit when I saw it. But other than that, the Fisherman's Wool comes in it's just a massive ball. I'll have the information below of the exact yarn and the yardage on those things. But I mean, for me, a bigger person to get a whole cardigan out of 3 balls of yarn isn't so bad. So for right now, we are on day 118 of this, just cracked into a new ball, making this the 3rd skein that this project is taking. And yeah, hopefully we can get through those sleeves quicker than I thought. Yeah, that's the Corsavan cardigan by Tanya Hodney. All right, next up, we have my newest sort of like race to the finish line project, and that is what I'm calling my Christmas dress. It is the Augustine's number 25 pattern by Anne-Sophie Velling, but completely inspired by Sage Knits and Things version of this dress. I am knitting mine out of 2 different drops yarns, which also is me sort of modifying the pattern from the suggested yarns. I am using the Drops Brush Alpaca Silk as well as Drops Fabelle, both in their red colorway. I last week had put my Progress Keeper on that I had just gotten. So I am currently... Here's the Progress Keeper, and I have knit a good bit. The way that this is constructed prior to basically last week, I was at the point where the portion that's covering the bust is a double folded fabric. So last week when I sat down to film, I had already done the innermost layer as well as the point of where it would be folded. And I was about 2 inches into then the second or front layer of the folded fabric. And so since then, it looks like I've gotten about 4 inches of stockinette done. Oh, I can measure. Thanks, Jonna. So yeah, since last week, I have gotten about 4 inches and 1/4, 4 1/4 inches of the stockinette done. And then about 7 inches of the honeycomb skirt knitting done, which I'm pretty impressed with. I'm pretty proud of that. So far, so good. I was so intimidated by the honeycomb pattern on this. I will say too, this is like the most sensory experience. I don't know what it is about it that I need to stick my fingers into all of these little nooks and crannies of the honeycomb. It's so satisfying. But I was intimidated looking at the honeycomb texture of the skirt. I don't know why it never even dawned on me that I was going to be cabling. I don't know. I just saw it and was like it, knit it, sounds good. And I have done a cable knit sweater before, but I only understood cables as the way that they are in your traditional, like that braided cable look, that like, okay, and then the stitches just cross each other and that's how you get the cable. So then for the cable needle to be brought into another context where I didn't look at it and immediately see those are cables, I was like, what kind of funky things are we going to be doing here? And this is so simple. It has such an effective look. I would be very interested to knit something else in a honeycomb texture, and I'm pretty pumped that I get to do this for the next like 2 miles of knitting. Basically, it's a, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's an 8-row repeat and super easy to memorize. Once you know what's going on, you've got the hang of it from there. And yeah, really things don't change once you start knitting the skirt. So it's only gotten easier, especially because from the bust portion to the skirt portion, I did change my needle size from a 4mm to a 6mm, I believe. I'll correct it on here if I'm wrong. And I think definitely with the fabric that I'm getting, the 6mm needle is a much more comfortable needle for me. I kind of feel like how dense the fabric is, the fabric that I'm getting with the yarns that I'm using, the 6mm needle gives it enough of an airiness and a lightness that I don't feel like I'm wrestling the stitches as much as I did feel like I was on the bust portion. It wasn't uncomfortable when I was knitting the bust portion. It just was like, I could do like a little bit less of this. But with the 6mm, it's very comfortable. The only issue for me is that something that I'm learning is when I am working with a larger needle size, that's actually what I'm finding less comfortable for my hands. So I would have thought that a smaller size needle would be more uncomfortable, but for me, that's just not how it is. I don't know why. I don't know why those things are the way that they are. So I am a little bit wary of that. I'm like, am I seeing a mistake? It always happens when I sit down that I start noticing all of my errors. No, I don't think it was a mistake. It was just a funny little tension point. But yeah, so okay, so with the progress keeper on, we now know how much progress has been made. I am going to move that. I reading the pattern, once you've knit the actual bust, I'm like the bust portion, the bust cover. I don't know what we're calling that. But once you've finished knitting the bust, then you are instructed to move on to the sleeves. I just had to know more about the honeycomb thing, so I bypassed the sleeves. I also figured my kind of game plan with this is, since I am on a deadline to Christmas, which by the way, this has been on my needles for 16 days. Not bad for 16 days, right? Especially when you consider the fact that the bust is a double layer. So I didn't realize quite how much knitting was going into that. That is a full 12 inches of stockinette. Like, that's a lot. So my thought process here is that I would like to okay, so blah, blah, blah. Rewind, try again. The skirt is intended to be a sort of midi length skirt. And the way that it's all constructed is that the honeycomb goes down until it looks like, I don't know, maybe 6 or so inches above the hem, at which point you start this really beautiful ribbed sort of interesting detail on the hem itself. So my thought is I will knit the honeycombs to a point that is an appropriate length and a comfortable length for myself if I were to wear this as a short dress. So wherever I feel like maybe let's say to the knee, if I'm going to wear it to the knee because I couldn't finish it in time for Christmas, I'm going to stop about 6 inches before I get to that point with the honeycomb. I'll move on and get the sleeves done. And then with the time I have remaining between that point and Christmas, I can gauge, am I just going to start doing that hem, that border, or am I going to power through and knit this to the full length that I want it to be? So I'm kind of giving myself that little bit of leeway right now. We still have a few weeks before we're at the deadline. So as long as I could keep up the momentum that I have this week, I think that this is doable. I'll definitely measure myself and see just how long the honeycomb will have to be in order for it to hit that midi length on me. But yeah, we're just playing this one by ear. Along the way too, I am trying to gauge how many inches of dress I'm getting out of a single ball of each the drops Fabelle and the drops brushed alpaca silk, because if I find that I'm running into an issue of yardage, I'd like to get ahead of it and hopefully get that order in time if I need to. So actually probably at some point this week I will sit down and take note of where I'm stopping and starting adding in a new ball, because I feel like every day I'm grabbing a new ball of yarn. It's not that dramatic, but we're going through it. So I want to make sure that I do have enough yarn to make this the length that I really want it to be. But we have been talking a lot about this drops brushed alpaca silk because of the issues that I've had. If you're curious to know more about that, I would just refer you back to the last 2 podcast episodes when I've talked about the texture that I've experienced in this red brushed alpaca silk. And after mentioning it last week, it seems like I am not the only one who has had this issue with a saturated dyed brushed alpaca silk from Drops. So just keep that in mind. And that's going to be pretty much where this will die, is if you are ordering your Drops brushed alpaca silk and you are looking at the more saturated colorways, I would just bear in mind that it is possible you're not going to receive something that has quite the amount of fluff as their less saturated colors do. So I'm not the only one who's experienced. Apparently, a lot of you have too. There are some people who have not experienced it, but it's just something that you should keep in mind if you're planning to order some Drops brushed alpaca silk. However, that being said, the fabric still is very, very soft. There's no itch factor to me with this. It's very soft and squishy. So that part of it is nice. It's just not as fluffy as I would have thought. Yes, hello. So yeah, there's no itch factor to this. It's really soft, it's really squishy, it's really cozy, and it just doesn't have that like hairiness or fluffiness that some of the other Drops brushed alpaca might give you, or a mohair would, of course. But yeah, we are on day 16 of my Christmas dress. That's the Augustine's number 25 pattern by Anne Sophie Velling. And yeah, we're gonna see how this goes. I wanted to mention, so basically, when I started knitting, I'm the kind of person that when I am trying something new, I feel like I need to gather the materials so that if I hit a roadblock in trying something new or learning something new, I can't allow something like, well, I don't have that tool. I can't allow that to hold me back. So way back when I first started knitting, I ordered just like a bunch of random little things on Amazon to hopefully smooth out any of those little roadblocks I might run into. And one of those things that I ordered was basically just like a variety pack of different things that you might need, like cable needles, those like bigger safety pins. I don't even know what else was in that. I think mostly just those things. But basically, in it came two different types of the cable needles. One is the one that looks like a little sort of like mustache kind of. And then the other one is the one that looks like a fishing hook. So I remember originally I had tried the first time I had done cables, I tried using the mustache one. These are very official terms, I know. So I used the mustache cable needle and I found that it just kept getting in my way. Like it was the most infuriating thing to me that I had to work around when I was pulling my stitches forward. Like to work around the needle was just so frustrating to me. And that was when I tried the little fishing hook version. It's this one specifically. And this is my cable hook. I like it for a few reasons. So basically, you kind of scoop the stitches up using the shorter end of the hook, and then they rest in the little elbow of the hook on whichever side of the fabric, you're told to at that point. And then you can kind of grab the elbow of the hook with your finger and pull it so that you are using the tip of the hook as your needle to work those stitches off of. So I found this to be really nice for that. As well as one other thing. When I was working with the cable needle, the mustache one, I kept losing it. In the in-between rows when you're not utilizing your cable needle, I kept like putting it down and it was falling between the couch cushions and it was slipping around onto the floor, or I don't know, I was just getting lost a lot. And something I like about the hook is that I literally I do that when I'm not using it. I have walked out of the house with it on my collar. But yeah, I just kind of, when I'm not using it, will pop it onto my shirt collar. So that's a pro tip for cabling. But no, really, if you struggle with cabling or you just find it to be fussy, and you haven't tried one of these hooks before, I definitely recommend it. On the same hand, if you like to use the hooks as your cable needles and you have one in particular that you love, I would love it if you would let me know down in the comments, because I do think that this is my preferred method of cabling. And the only issue that I'm having with this hook is that it's kind of just like, it's huge. I don't need a hook that's this big. And I think it would be nice if maybe there was like a curve to it or something so that it could be a little bit more, again, out of the way when I'm trying to work around it. But if you've never tried one of these cable hooks, I definitely suggest that you give it a try. I feel like it's worth mentioning today too that I decided to film a little bit later than I usually do. And it's winter, and that makes a huge difference. So we are working with a little bit of a different lighting setup today. I'm going to just play it off as like Christmas vibes, but if you really hate it, let me know and I'll make sure that I don't do this again. That is Augustine's number 25 by Anne-Sophie Velling, my Christmas dress. And yeah, we're going to be doing honeycombs for a little bit. So I'll just keep you posted on how that goes. Now, last week, those were my only 2 works in progress. And this week, I do have one more, which means that there was a new cast on. And with that also came an acquisition. So we've got a little bundle of fun for you right now. If you have been around for a little bit, you may remember that I mentioned I was on the lookout for a yarn to knit my boyfriend a hat. And I had some very specific, what's the word I'm going for? I was looking for something pretty particular in a yarn for his hat. So one of those things was the color. I don't usually work with a hand-dyed yarn, and so I figured for a hat project where I was only going to need a single skein, I was happy to invest in something that was going to be a little bit more of a luxury yarn purchase, since I don't normally do that. I also knew that I wanted to find something that was going to be better for someone who's a little more sensitive to wool. He's just not crazy about the rustic wool, so I was looking for something that was softer to the touch. And otherwise, I was really hoping to find something in a fingering weight because my goal was to knit the muscle bra Muscle Bra. That reminds me too. The Muscle Bra by Isolde Teague is a super popular hat pattern. I'm sure that if you watch other knitting podcasts, you've seen it before. And I feel like it's one of the most controversial pronunciation games in the knitting world, where I have heard this hat pronounced so many different ways. The way that it's spelled, you could say Musselberg, Muscle Burrow, Muscle Burr. And I had a German friend on here let me know that it is pronounced Muscle Bra. So I will be doing my best to say Muscle Bra. And I always appreciate it, specifically if you are from the country or speak the language of the pattern designer thing that I'm trying to say. I love to learn something. So if you want to let me know how to pronounce these things better, then please do. Just know that I might not get it right and I might struggle to remember how it actually goes. So the Muscle Bra by Isolde Teague is the pattern that I was going for. It's basically knit. I was trying to explain it to my boyfriend in like what he was going to see kind of come together before he had a hat on his head. And the best way that I could think to explain it was when you see those pill capsules, like the dissolvable ones, where you have a color on each side being different. Imagine that you are actually knitting one of those pill capsules and that you're going to start in the one color and knit your way to the center, at which point you're going to continue knitting past that into what would be a second color and then finish out with the round of the pill on the other side. So you're actually basically knitting like two hats, but all connected in one tube with a crown at either end. And once it's all knit up, you just tuck one half inside of the other. So it's open to a lot of possibilities. If you want to have two different colored hats, you could literally make it like one of those pill capsules. Or if you're like me, I'm just looking for something that's going to be lighter weight, but still warm, and something that looks a little bit more commercial, really was the goal that I was going for him. So I feel like I went off on a whole tangent there. Did I remember what I was talking about? So yeah, I've been on the lookout for yarn for him and the colorway. The colorway that I wanted for him was something that was going to be, like I said, hand dyed, but in darker colors, preferably in like grays, blacks, whites maybe. And over the weekend, I popped into Stars Hollow Yarns, where I ran into Lorraine, who is part of our little family over here. And we got to chatting. I also met the other amazing ladies over there, and they were so helpful. And that yarn store is just absolutely gorgeous. If you are ever in the area, I highly suggest that you check it out. It's inspired by Gilmore Girls, Stars Hollow. Love it. That makes it even better. But yeah, I walked in and Lorraine recognized me right away. And next thing you know, we're singing the theme song. And it was the highlight of my whole weekend. So thank you, Lorraine, and the ladies over at Stars Hollow Yarns. But yeah, beautiful shop. They had a really nice, diverse selection of some brands that I'd never seen in person before, as well as some that I'd never heard of before, and then some that were more familiar. So I was looking all over the place and I was about to give up. I hadn't found what I was looking for. And then at that point, they have the displays that are on like a turntable that spin, but I totally didn't see it. And when I tell you I like did a few laps around the store, like, let me just check one more time. Let me just check one more time. And in that time, they had turned one of the displays and I literally walked over and I was like, was that there the whole time? It was the perfect yarn for what I was looking for. I went ahead and I made the purchase. The yarn that I got was Hedgehog Fibers Skinny Singles in their colorway Orca. This yarn originally priced is $38 and they were running a 10% off discount for the day. So I went ahead and grabbed it because it was exactly what I was looking for. And like I said, I knew I was only going to need the one skein. So I wasn't mad about spending a little bit more, especially because I had such specific specifications that I was looking for. It foot the bill. That was that. So it's the colorway Orca, and this yarn comes in 100-gram skein with 366 meters on the skein, and it's 100% merino wool. At this point, I have had the muscle bra on my hat for 3 days, and here we are. I feel like you're not even going to be able to see what this looks like on here, nor will you be able to see the progress that I've made. I am using, these are my Addi Turbo little guy, small circumference needles, and I am knitting this. I want to say that these are are they a 3mm? I know it says it on there somewhere. I think that these are a 3mm needle. I have made, I think, some good progress. In full honesty, I did not expect the crown increases to take as long as they did. I am knitting this in the adult medium with my gauge of about 8.5 stitches per inch, which the nice thing with the muscle bra is they have you just start knitting and then tell you at what point you should check your gauge. I felt like I was a little bit I was struggling a little bit to kind of measure and count with just like the small bit that I had done. I think when I knit this again, because I do plan to make multiples of this hat as long as we like it. When I do it again, I'll probably just assume like we're going to be knitting the adult medium size. So, and it's obviously a smaller gauge. So let's go ahead and just do some more increases and then we can check the gauge for real and determine what size we should or what gauge we should be following the instructions for. But I went ahead with the adult medium at the gauge that I was getting. And so far, I think things are looking pretty good. It did take me a couple of, it took many hours to get through the crown increases. It wasn't difficult or anything. It just was, I don't know. It just took a little while where I was like, I want my stockinette in the round now. I didn't get it. So I was not in the stockinette on the round on day 1 or day 2. It did take me until day 3 to get to stockinette in the round, and that is okay. I followed Nitty Natty's tutorial for the crochet cast on that she does and found that to be incredibly helpful. And I started this using magic loop, which is just about my least favorite thing to do in knitting. However, I don't have DPNs other than a single set, and they were not the right needle size for this. So I was forced into magic loop. So I was pretty eager to get this to the point where I could knit it in the round. And I was just lucky that I had these 3mm small circumference needles hanging out in my backpack. And so, yeah, at this point, this is just for keeping by the couch, keeping at a place that like I can just pick up and knit in the round without looking at it. And that's the only plan I have for this. Would I love to get this done for Christmas? Absolutely. But we'll see. There's really no pressure to get it done before then. The colorway of this yarn, it does range from a true black to a white, and then there's that gray in between. I feel like the gray has a purpley blue undertone to it, so in certain lighting it does look a little bit more purpley blue, like an indigo color. But overall, you know that it is black and white when you look at it. And the only thing that I have right now, I have 2 little gripes with it. The first one being that it is a single ply yarn, and it's when it's knit up, it's particularly textured. Hopefully when it blocks, that'll block out a little bit and it'll soften up. It is soft. It's soft. It's not itchy. It's just that feeling it's pretty textured. It's just interesting, different experience. And then really my main issue with it right now is that as I've been knitting this, my fingers have been turning black. So I really hope that when I wash it, a ton of dye doesn't come out, but we'll find out. I wouldn't even be mad if it murkied up some of the white bits because overall we were looking for more of like a gray and black hat, and the white was just like, all right, that'll do. So it wouldn't bother me or him if it wound up being more gray than white. but I don't love that I have to wash my hands after I've worked on this because they literally do turn black with dye. So that's not awesome. But otherwise, basically, as I got started with this, once I had completed the increases in the crown, I did weigh the remaining ball of yarn that I had and determined that the increases didn't take up much yarn at all. It was about 5 grams of yarn. So I'm going to see how things go from here on out. He would like a hat that does have a folded brim. And I would assume the more times you could fold it, the better. And they do say that usually you can get this hat out of a single skein. I'd love to have nothing left over is the goal. So my plan right now is to knit this until I have a little more than 5 grams of yarn left on the ball, and then do the decreases and finish the other crown. And I don't know, we'll see how it goes. It's my first muscle bra. And I would like to knit others in the other colors I mentioned I had when I did my winter knitting plans video. So this was part of my winter knitting plans. Woohoo, we're doing it. Which is probably a good segue into the next portion of this video where we go awry. But this is the Muscle Bra by Isolde Teague and the Hedgehog Fibers yarn. And this is going to be for my boyfriend. And yeah, just stacking it in the round. Not too much to say about it. So that was an acquisition, which if you know me, I don't typically just go out and buy new yarn. But I mean, that I didn't just go out and buy that willy-nilly. That did have a purpose. I was looking for that. However, I also made a little bit more of an impulsive purchase this week. So Claudia of Unit Toronto has released a new pattern. It's called Caramello, and I'm going to call it the Caramello sweater because that's just easier. But it's just your like basic staple turtleneck, like just simple basic sweater. And I literally saw the pattern and was like, yes, must knit. Now, Unit Toronto did kindly gift me the pattern. They also had given you guys a 50% off discount code. So if you want to stay up to date with things like that, I definitely recommend following me over on Instagram at aka Nora Knits. But I did also post it on YouTube here. So I will always try and let you guys know in both avenues how you can take advantage of those little deals that I get from time to time. But they did generously gift me the pattern, and I literally was like, buying yarn now. Because I noticed recently that I don't have like a staple sweater, and I have been wearing non-stop my Like pullover by Sari Nordland, and it's because it's white and the yarn that I knit it in. So I decided with the Caramello sweater, I am straying a little bit from my winter knitting plans, but this just feels right, that I need a staple basic black sweater. So the yarn that I had used for my Like pullover was a combination of 2 yarns that I had purchased at Webb's, America's Yarn Store, yarn.com. And one of those was their, I think it's Valley Yarns Alpaca Silk. And it's a lace weight yarn. It's alpaca, it's silk, and I think there's merino in it. And it was on sale. So I got some. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see the color of this yarn. It is called black. Is it black? Not really. I would consider this just about the darkest charcoal gray you could go before it's black, but I like that about it because it's gonna have some dimension to it still. I just found this yarn to be so soft, and it's in my Like pullover with 100% wool strand as well. However, I thought for a simple staple turtleneck black sweater, why not just go a little bit more luxury? So I will be holding 3 strands of this together to get a DK weight yarn for the Caramello sweater, and I'm hoping to cast that on next. Now, my rule of thumb that I'm going to follow from now on is that I can not have any more than 3 whips going at one time. One of those, right now we're not into this place, but that's because we're coming out of some bad habits. Moving forward, though, the goal is to have one project that's primarily stockinette, one project that is primarily textured, and then a third project that is an accessory or a smaller project. So my thought is that once either the Christmas dress or the Corsavan cardigan are finished, I will pick up the caramello sweater and start knitting it in this black charcoal gray alpaca silk yarn so that for the remainder of the winter, I can have a go-to black sweater. I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah, it's just very simple. I bought 3 cones of this. Typically the cones are about, I want to say that they're $38 a piece. I'll have to put it on the screen. And they were on sale for $20. So yeah, I went ahead and I did it. I love my Like. I love this yarn. I just think it's gonna be a go-to in a nice thin, lightweight fabric. I don't know. I'm excited about it. So that was an acquisition that I made. There's 3 cones. Yeah, it's naughty. It was naughty. So yeah, those are my whips, my acquisitions, and a little bit of my plans. As far as plans with the projects that I have on the needles right now, I obviously Christmas dress, honeycomb, honeycomb, honeycomb. The muscle bra I really want to try and reserve that just for those moments when I'm knitting without looking. So when we're watching TV or just if I'm going out and about, like that would be the thing that I would bring with me. And then the Corsavan cardigan, this is my plan at the moment. Get the sleeves done, like just keep going with it. However, once the Christmas dress is finished, right now the Christmas dress is kind of my high priority whip. And once that's done, I'm hoping I'll have a week at least left in the year, because the idea is that the Christmas dress will be finished for Christmas. So once that is off of my whip list, my thought is just get that Corsavan cardigan done. I would love to wrap that baby up by the end of the year so that starting the new year, we are just starting fresh. That's the goal. I don't want this thing to come with me into 2024 other than as a wearable garment. So those are my plans, ambitious as they may be. I'm pretty excited about what's on my needles. I'm pretty excited about what's going to be on my needles. And that's the thing is I'm itching to cast on something new for my wardrobe. And I think that is why I'm trying to stay focused and get these things done so that I have them for when I want to have them, but then get to start some new stuff in the new year. I cannot believe we're here already. That's what I have planned for now. So I think that's everything, you guys. Think. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully this wasn't too long. I felt like I got a lot of things done in the last week, but that's a good thing. With the holiday, I was just chilling. I did mention I was going to try and get another video out last week, but decided to just kick back and enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday. So that being said, there will be a video coming out this coming week. And otherwise, guys, we're in the holiday season. I hope you like the new holiday backdrop and the song. And that is all I have for you today. So if you enjoyed this video, definitely please feel free to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell, all of those things that YouTube really does like. And with that being said, big ol' thanks for watching. I will catch you on the next one. All right, you guys, bye.